Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dutch Martini. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you're having an amazing day. So, today's existential crisis talk is starting with this little message that I stumbled upon on social media, and which basically blew up my current existence and was actually the reason I decided to stop using social media, at least for a little bit. So, what I came across on Instagram is the fact that as of July 2nd, aka this week, we have officially entered the second quarter of the 21st century, which means that as of July 2nd, the year 2050 is closer to today than the year 2000. And this is fully freaking me out. And I tried to explain it to multiple people. Most of them didn't get it because I just think that it's a concept not really a lot of people think about, or it's just like, honestly, I try to share it with people who I think just don't think. And I really wonder what happens in the mind of someone who is not plagued by existential dread, by just thoughts about their life and what their life means and who they want to be and who they are and who they were. What is it not to think? What is it to be satisfied with just the way things are and not ponder and wonder and ruminate about everything in your existence? What is it like to not be an overthinker? What is it like to not feel things that deeply and to just let them be and to not necessarily attach severe meaning to everything in your life? Does that make your life devoid of emotionality? Or does that just make your life easier? Or are those synonyms? I don't know. But what I've figured out, and it's through comparison, and I know, of course, I only see and hear and know what people share with me, and I'm not there to see the larger picture. I am not in their head, I'm not in their life, so I am aware of whatever is going on in their life to the level to which they let me. But what I think about is that this thing about ignorance is a bliss stems from the fact that emptiness, when it comes to emotionality, is perhaps easier to deal with. And I don't mean emptiness in a way in which you feel empty, as in like non-satisfied, unsatisfied, not satisfied. I don't know. And you don't feel happy and you're just not content. I mean emptiness as in lack of emotionality or like deeper something beyond physicality. And I think that this emptiness may perhaps be easier to deal with through life than the sadness that basically is separable from existential dread. And while ignorance is bliss in the sense that it is perhaps really nice, I don't know, I've never experienced this, but to just, clock out of work, go home, play your TV show, and then after an episode or two, just exist and not think about anything, and just when you lay in bed to not have any thoughts and to not be plagued by your consciousness. So I don't know what that's like, but I feel like it might be easier to exist that way than to live with deeper connections, maybe not connections, deeper feelings, deeper emotions, deeper questions. However, despite ignorance maybe being bliss, I feel like I am, despite my lack of contentment, is that a word, content? Being the state of content, sometimes because of one or many factors in my life, I feel like it is a privilege to feel that deeply, to experience that deeply, to think that deeply, to live. And I'm not trying necessarily to imply that one is purely existing while the other is living, although I feel like I've literally just mentioned it. But it's just, you know what, every single time I have these thoughts about thinking, because, a person who thinks a lot has nothing to think about but their thinking. I just remember this one scene from Never Have I Ever on Netflix, the TV show, and I'm going to misquote it, but I don't know which season it was. I cannot tell you which episode it was exactly, but in one of the episodes, in one of the scenes, when Davy goes to her therapist, I'm really sorry, I forgot the name of the therapist, but the therapist tells her, Davy, you feel a lot, which means that sometimes you're going to hurt a lot. But that also means that you're going to live a very rich life and a very beautiful life. And this, when I saw this, it fully altered my brain chemistry. Because I used to think about overthinking as punishment. And sure, sometimes it is, because it genuinely plagues your days. It makes you feel so non-sufficient. It makes you feel just not great about yourself. But then I thought about it and I'm like, what a privilege. What a privilege that I get the chance to think about the things I think and feel the things I feel. What a privilege to question things. What a privilege to be mindful enough to seek for mindfulness. And then there's also something else I came across that really altered the way I see emotionality and my engagement with my psyche and my thought processes. And it was something along the lines of, what a privilege it is to be sad, to be and hear me out. I'm not saying that, wow, being sad is amazing. It was something along the lines of, and it tried to convey the meaning of, the fact that you have the opportunity to engage in deeper thoughts, to devote of your time, your most precious and otherwise unattainable resource. What a privilege that you get the chance to invest time and energy into thinking beyond fulfilling physical needs. Because if you have the chance to engage in thoughts about happiness, about contentment, about fulfillment, about purpose, that means that your physical needs, which we all know Maslow's pyramid or whatever it's called, I don't know. Well, apparently not all of us know. That means that the fact that you get the chance to engage in something more emotional, more spiritual, it implies that your physical needs have been met, that your existence on a purely survival basis is not threatened. And that really, really made me realize what a privilege to feel. What a privilege to get to feel sad, to get to feel happy, to get to feel disappointed, to get to ponder about meaning and purpose and soul and anything else, because that means I have a roof over my head, I have food on the table, and I don't have to worry of whether or not I will have them. Because people whose homes and nourishment are not secure, they have to worry about those things first. You have to tend to your survival before you get the opportunity, the privilege, the chance to engage with your deeper beyond physical existence. And I think as someone who has struggled and still struggles a lot with their mental health, I used to take this as a curse, as a punishment. And trust me, it really can be, because mental health, when you're not excelling at it, when it's just this pitfall that you're free falling into and you have no form of saving, it can be exhausting. The mental can jeopardize the physical, but the physical needs to be tended to first to pay attention to the mental. And I'm not saying that struggling with my mental health is a privilege. I'm just saying that what a privilege that my physical needs, purely survival needs, have been met, that I get the chance to sit here and talk about 2050 being closer to today than the 2000. And I feel like once we take a step back, and I'm not saying, oh, be grateful for your depression, be grateful for your mental health struggles. I am just trying to paint a different picture where we reassess the situation and we can take a breath. And this is so much easier said than done, because if it was just like, oh, change your perspective and your mental health is, cured, quote unquote, it will be so easy. But it doesn't work like this. But in moments when I really struggle with my mental health, I try to remind myself, your physical needs have been met. Your existence on a physical basis, your livelihood are not in jeopardy. You have the chance to tend to your mind, to your heart, to your soul, because your body has already been tended to. But before I went on this tangent, I wanted to say that, yes, 2050 is closer than the year 2000, and this is freaking me out because till this day, when you say 20 years ago, I don't think about 2005. I think about the 90s, baby. Even though I was not alive during the 90s, I don't think I was even a thought in the 90s. And that is just a crazy concept, how time moves by. Time flies. It goes through me. I've talked about this a lot. I think about this a lot. It plagues me a lot. I cannot shake the thought of time and how it's slipping away. But this seeing this on my feed, that I just couldn't. I am closer to being 30 than to being 13. I am closer to being 40 than to being born. And this is genuinely terrifying me. And the reason it is terrifying me is because, well, there are many reasons why it's terrifying me, but I feel like there's a particular narrative that is circulating women when it comes to aging, and that is propagated, let's say, not circulating, but propagated about women and aging, and the fact that women are not entitled to age. Because I feel like when a woman turns 30, and look at the media, and I'm not talking about this super recent progressive like media content which is trying to be oh so inclusive but is sometimes failing, sometimes really propagating and furthering the issues. I'm talking about the media content I grew up watching, early 2000s, late 90s. That is the content with which I was quote unquote breastfed. And this is content in which women over 30 did not exist as main characters. They were, and I'm not talking about Sex and the City here, guys. I'm talking about, well, I didn't watch Sex and the City up until last year, but like just in general, I feel like Sex and the City is one of the few shows which focuses on womanhood in their 30s, because a woman unfortunately gets socially annihilated when she turns 30 because she's no longer considered youthful. And unfortunately, the way things have been conceived and propagated time and time again, it's the fact that women's worth is severely tied and unbreakable, and just the bond cannot be severed between a woman's worth and a woman's youth. And it's like the older a woman gets, the more she decreases in value, which could not be farther from the truth. I feel like Can you hear my dogs barking? My female dogs, my senior dog, she's barking her throat now. Throat out now because she's agreeing with me. She's like, yes, I'm a senior dog and I have worth, I have purpose, and I have meaning. There you go. What a feminist icon. Guys, girls, come on. Come on, babes. Wait, let me close the window. In this 30 plus degree heat, me closing the window should signify to you the dedication I have to providing you with content that is of quality, because I am genuinely going to suffocate. Guys, I know I said I'm never going to complain about the heat when I come back to Bulgaria, but the heat has been heating, and we still haven't reached a point when I wake up in the middle of the night just to take a shower because I am drenched. But we are heading there, and we are heading there head first with 300 kilometers per hour, and that is on global warming. But what was I saying? Yes, women get socially annihilated when they turn 30, and yes, that is a punishment. It also kind of sounds like a little bit of freedom, that there's no social expectations on you now. Well, I mean, like, there's expectations on career and family and having a house, but in this crisis, in this political and economic climate, do you think I'll ever be a homeowner? Babe, I mean, I know we're delusional queens and maybe even kings here, but like, come on, we're all queens. That sounded like that Ava Max song that's been overplayed, and I just really, there are a few songs I have basically blocked on Spotify, and I feel like this one should be one of them. And I'm sorry to Ava Max, all power to you, girl. I support you in whatever you do. I have literally no information on what you're doing. I'm sorry. It's just this song is a bit overplayed for me. Anyways, but like the other songs are of course uh Dance Monkey and Despacito, because if I hear those ones again, like it will feel like I am in a torture chamber just tied. Like, if you want to torture me, put me in a chamber. Why am I saying chamber as if I'm British? Come on. Put me in a room. Put me in a dungeon and just play Dance Monkey or Despacito on repeat. And and give me rocket to eat. Those are the things I hate. And am I really putting myself in jeopardy by saying the things I hate and like encouraging people to torture me? Anyways, women in their 30s. So I feel like it might be a little bit of a relief that there's no social pressure on you to be youthful, because you're not perceived as youthful despite you literally being so young. I don't know why those misconceptions of the 30s developed. I am not too happy about them, but if me turning 30 means that the weight off of my shoulders will be lifted when it comes to beauty standards, when it comes to, the way I should act, the way I should be, then so be it. But guys, during 2050, if we live to see 2050, because the way things are going right now aren't necessarily giving me too much hope about our long-term our short-term survival, let alone long-term survival. But 2050, I am going to be 48 years old. And that is just you guys know how much I struggled turning 23, let alone 48. I hope by then I would have made peace with myself and with aging. But this is just a crazy concept to think about, that I'm going to be 48 when I haven't even reached half of that yet. I'm only 23. Oh my God. By saying only 23, did I just confirm to myself that 23 is actually young and I'm not, an old, decrepit person? Oh my God, am I subconsciously starting to embrace myself and embrace my life? Oh my God, tune in next week to find out. But yeah, so half of 48 is 24, which is how math works. I haven't even reached 24, and I'm going to be 48. And that is just wow. Like, that is 2 decades from now, almost three. And that is so crazy to think about, because 2050 doesn't sound like a real year. I'm sorry. I'm still struggling to cope with like the last real year that the last year that had a real sound to it was 2021. And you cannot convince me otherwise. What the fuck is 2022? What the fuck is Don't get me started on 2028. What the fuck is that a year? That's not a real year. That is legitimately made up. I mean, like, technically calendars are man-made and timekeeping is man-made, and like, it's a concept that people constructed for one reason or another. But what do you mean 2043 is an actual year in the calendar? That doesn't sound real. It legitimately doesn't sound real. And you know what further freaks me out when you think about it? We are in the 20th, like the 20s, come on. We're in the 20s of the 21st century. And this, when you think about it like this, that we're in the 20s of the century, is so freaking me out, because I feel like this is all I've ever known, despite like literally not that literally just not being true. I have lived over, so I am 23, but technically I have lived over 3 decades, because I've lived in the 2010s, and now 2020s. And that is crazy. But yeah, it is the 20s of the 21st century, and I wonder if they're going to talk about us in history books, if, of course, humanity persists long enough to write history books about the 20s of the 21st century, and doesn't just write news articles and news titles which are relevant now. I don't know. I really don't know if we're going to survive the way things are going. But do you think they'll talk about the pandemic, the wars, the social and political climate right now? Shout out Jaden Smith. We didn't listen to you, but boy, were you right. Does Jaden Smith go by he, him? I really don't know. I am so sorry if I misgendered him/they. I really don't know. I really have not engaged with that family since the slap, which was such a crazy thing that happened. Because what do you mean you physically assault the host of the award show, and then you get presented with the biggest award of the night? How is the mathematic here? Why did people allow this? And I can understand why certain people, stayed and didn't engage with it and didn't try to prevent it, because it's in moments like these, you're fight or fly, like you're freeze or what, like most people, because like you don't expect to be physically assaulted at an award show. For what, like, legitimately, what happened there? And I know apologies have been done, and Chris Rock did a stand-up special about this, about selective outrage, which I think is a really nice stand-up special. I think you can watch it on Netflix. Why am I promoting it as if they're paying me? Chris Rock does not know if I exist, and he couldn't care less if I live or die. But that's alright. Like, his stand-up, I think he's like a great comedian. And this really now opens up the conversation of whether or not comedians should be held accountable, and should they be considered cancelable when it comes to their jokes. Like, what is something you can joke about? And I know this may be a hot take for some people, but I think that we can joke about basically anything in life. And consider that this is coming from someone who battled their depression through coping with humor. But I feel like when it comes to jokes, you can joke about anything as long as you make it tasteful and respectful. But if you joke in a way to embarrass or degrade, that's not funny. And I know that now me saying that degrading and humiliating and embarrassing jokes are really not that fun. They're actually super embarrassing for the person who makes them. Now I know this is eradicating the humor for the average white man. Oh, sorry, that was hee hee. You know, well, they're all willing to make a joke at the expense of any minority and any socially weaker group of people, but when it comes to them, they're so emotional and so sensitive. And of course, I'm not trying to generalize. There's good white heterosexual men, good white gay men, good white men. Unfortunately, most of them that I've encountered, I'm like, I hate myself so much for being heterosexual. I so wish that gender identities and sexual orientation, I really wish they were a choice. I really, really wish they were. Because why, if they were a choice, why would I purposefully make the decision to be attracted to that? And I'm sorry, but like, come on. I saw this this meme that really made me laugh the other day. Oh, it wasn't the other day. I haven't had Instagram for a week. Well, I mean, of course, the Instagram for Dirty Martini is going to exist because Stuart Rise. But, oh my god, that was so unnecessary. But like, I saw something that, oh, you know, women who sleep with men get made fun of, and men who sleep with men get made fun of. So what's the common denominator? That sleeping with a man is something embarrassing and being attracted to a man is something embarrassing. And this is coming from, unfortunately, a heterosexual person. It is embarrassing because what the fuck? Like, legitimately, what the fuck? Like, I know it's not Pride Month. Shout out to my kings, queens, days, monarchs, whatever you identify with. I support you. Consider me the pole of the flag. I unfortunately may be straight, but I am there to support you. It's just, come on. Pride Month is every month. Come on. What did I want to say about the 20s of the 21st century? Yeah, do you think they're going to talk about those stuff? Do you think they're going to talk about the wars, the pandemic? Are they going to talk about AI? Is there even going to be people? Like, if let's say I have children one day, I decide to have children, I will have to explain to them that I am older than generative AI. The same way my parents are older than Google. That is so, like, oh my god, I really am not ready for Gen Z to be the boomers of the world. What generation is going to be that? Because, like, I don't know if you know this, but in 2025 we started a new generation, and it is Generation Beta. And I'm sorry, but like, what? That means that Gen Z are now the millennials, and I am not ready for that. But okay, so when those potential history books, let's say like we're super optimistic and humanity persists, and they're talking about us like in the 22nd century, and they're learning about us the way we're learning about, you know, the 20th century, and it's unfortunately extreme relevance when it comes to early history of the 20th century compared to our current existence. Are they going to talk about technology and global warming? Like, what are they going to look at TikToks as a form of, you know, information to learn more about us? Because what is someone doing the renegade speaking about humanity? And mind you, doing the renegade when millions of people are dying because of a virus. We are such a weird generation. And as much as I love us, sometimes I'm so confused by us. And I really, when you take a step back and look at things from, a bird point of view, it is so confusing the way we handle things and the way, like, what do you mean? A lot of people, myself included, spend the pandemic just scrolling on TikTok, which gave them a deformation on their pinky. I know some of you now are looking at your pinkies. Yes, this little tilt that's happening in the middle of your pinky is because of the way you hold your phone. And then people tell me, oh, media studies is so irrelevant, people being me. Yeah, our phones have literally become an extension of our body. And this is so fucking scary. But are they going to look at the things we have now as artifacts? What word did I say? How could I mispronounce it that badly? Artifacts. Are they going to look at the newest phone model and be like, oh my god, this is so old school and vintage, and how did they even manage with that? Because I imagine by this time, I don't know, like phones will be just, the screen, because they're on a path to become thinner and thinner but larger and larger, so it's just going to be like the screen. And I'm sorry, but like the biggest opportunity ever missed when it comes to the technology world is the actual development of the Pear phone. I'm talking about these phones that were copycats of the iPhone, the Apple phone, and they were basically called Pear phone, and they were in the shape of a pear, and they were the coolest thing ever, and I really, really wanted a Pear phone. And if they ever develop a Pear phone, I will sell everything I own, which is not a lot, just to get one. Because technically, well, originally my Pear phone, when it comes to selling everything I own to get the chance to have it, was, going to a One Direction concert. But I don't think that's going to happen. Well, I know that's unfortunately not going to happen. And that is super heartbreaking, and I'm starting to tear up, and I don't want to. Come on. Oh, I really should make that episode about parasocial relationships, which I've been, edging you about for a year. But I think parasocial grief is something really interesting that we should dive into. But what if, like, how are they going to talk about it? Like, will books exist, or will everything be on the internet? Will everything be in a PDF version? Because, nowadays, for example, companies are cutting down on paper by introducing screens with, all the information that was otherwise going to be contained in a folder. So will books cease to exist because, they're cutting down trees? They technically have, well, not technically, they literally have a virtual digital counterpart. So are books and textbooks and just written paper, like paper, is it going to exist? Will people still be able to handwrite? Or is everything going to convert to typing? I don't know. And I honestly, when I was little, well, when I was in school, basically, which is not I was technically little, so that's like a decade ago. Well, I mean, technically it's 4 years since I graduated from high school. I literally have a bachelor's degree. I finished my pre-master, and a year from now, I'm supposed to have finished my master's degree, which is just another crazy concept to talk about. But let's stick first to 2050. But actually, let's turn back to 2015. So when I was, in school, in middle school or whatever, during summer, I would naturally not have homework the way I used to during the academic year, despite having some assignments to finish. And I would not write with my hand as much as I had to on a day-to-day basis during the academic year. So every year on the 15th of September, which is when the school year in Bulgaria starts, I would grab a pen and just, start writing my things down for the day after, which is when the first school day is. And I would just be unable to write. And like, I would just my I that pen felt so unnatural and so foreign in my hand that I was fully freaked out. And that's why, for example, in my notebooks from grade 4 to grade, I don't know, 6 or 7, you can see me having completely different handwriting during the different academic years, because I would not write anything for 2 months, and then I would just grab the pen and I would just like be, I don't know how to write. Like, this feels so unnatural. Luckily, I no longer have this because I literally write every single day, because I keep a diary every single day. And I really also want to dedicate an entire episode to this and tell you how keeping a diary has helped me transform my life for the better and transform my relationship with myself for the better. In fact, I actually wanted this to be the very first episode of the year, because on the 1st of July, it marked 10 years since I started journaling every single day. But I just really wanted to make the perfect representation and the perfect narration of what my journaling experience has been so far, that I never got to making it, which brings us back to last week's episode about my obsession with perfection and my perfectionism, which is ruining my life and is basically making me procrastinate, which is one of the things I hate most in life. So fun stuff. It's coming full circle, guys. Coming full circle. But what if in 2050, like, will the internet still exist? Because, like, what happens to our current humanity, which is so highly internet dependent? What happens if the internet just cut off and we were unable to reinstate it? What would happen? Because, for example, I assume a lot of you, for example, Android users use Google Photos, and iPhone, Apple users use iCloud. And like, if you have a different operational system, I'm sorry for not including you. Those are literally just the only two I could think of right now. Because, oligopoly. But what happens if the internet ceases to exist and all the information that we have been storing in Google Photos, Google Drive, iCloud, in any sort of purely digital format, it will just disappear. It will be as if it never existed, as if it was never created. And that's why people around me, like older people around me, keep saying, if you don't have a physical copy, it does not exist. And this is honestly super true. And that's why I think we should bring back printing out pictures, at least, because pictures are one of the most important things in a person's life, and they're so diminished in value now because they're so common. It's not like back in the day when you had a disposable camera and you had just 28 shots or something like this. You had to savor the pictures. Now, with my, 128 gigabyte phone storage, I can make thousands of pictures. And that's why the whole concept of capturing a moment through a camera lens is not as meaningful as it was back then. It's not as purposeful as it was back then, because now it is not scarce. And that's why digitalization really changed our relationship to certain stuff, because we went from scarcity to abundance. And when you exist in a state of abundance, you don't necessarily value everything you have the way you would if it was scarce. Like, think about it. If you have, I don't know, 10 chocolates, the first few you're going to eat as if, it didn't matter. You would eat a chocolate a day. But if you had just one, you would eat a single piece a day or even less, because you would be savoring it. You would be saving it, because every single one meant that you had one less and your capacity was limited. And now our capacity is so not limited. I, as a single individual, can go on iCloud and purchase 1 terabyte of storage every month. It's a monthly subscription. What do I need a terabyte for? Like, what? I, as an individual, should not be entitled to that much space, despite me loving it and now, like, thinking about it. Although, like, it's really not worth it. Like, come on, it's 10 euros a month. It's super expensive. But, I have a lot of pictures because I can take a lot of pictures. And that's why I think we should bring back, well, maybe not bring, like, I love having the chance to capture everything. I make a video every single day. I make 1 second video, and at the end of the year, I edit it out. I edit it together, and I create a trailer of what my year looked like. This was something unattainable like 20 years ago. And that is just crazy how fast technology develops. It is just crazy. It develops at an exponential rate. And I not to make bold statements here, but I feel like technology is one of the, if not, and this is my bold statement, I think it is the fastest developing thing ever. It evolutes and revolutes or whatever every year, multiple times a year, if not every month, if not every single day. And it gets to a point where it's like, are we going to reach the limit? Or is it going to be like so ahead of the curve became a sphere type of thing, and we're just going to go full circle back to things like, because we've seen a growth in the demand for LPs and disposable cameras, because people, we are nostalgic, and we want, not that we want scarcity, but we value scarcity. And because we want to ascribe value to our moments, that's why we go towards the Polaroid cameras, which print out the picture immediately, because it gives you a physical copy. It is more expensive, which means that you're more limited in your capacity. You're not going to make, 10,000 pictures in a day. You're going to make 2 or 3. And it's really going to make you think about what it is that you want to capture. And the thing that you want to capture is really going to be meaningful to you. And that's why you're going to value it. Whereas now, I can take a picture of myself every minute if I wanted to. Whereas when I was a child, I have a few pictures of myself. I mean, sure, I have way more pictures of myself than, for example, my parents or my grandparents have of themselves. Because when I was growing up, photography was starting to become a thing for the masses rather than for selected privileged few. And now, for example, babies have the chance to be pictured by their parents every single day, and they'll have the chance to look back on thousands and thousands of pictures of themselves. Are they going to? I really don't think so. Also, parents, please, for the love of God, don't post your children on the internet. Like, this is extreme exploitation. And I know you mean good. I know you're like, oh, but I really want to share a little Jimmy or a little Daisy with my best friend who I have not seen in 20 years. That's all right. Send them a picture. Don't post it on Facebook. Don't post it on Instagram. Don't post it on YouTube. You're exploiting that child. And there are so many predators out there who just look at how many likes and shares and saves a picture of a child has. And if that does not concern you, I think you're part of the problem. Because the exploitation of children for likes and shares and comments and popularity is one of the single most disgusting, vile things a grown person can do. And you cannot convince me otherwise. Because that child is not old enough to comprehend what's going on. And that child is not old enough to consent. So you are consenting on behalf of your child without your child being aware of the risks and threats and the disadvantages their digital footprint that was imposed on them might pose, because they didn't opt in for that digital footprint. And if your child 5 years old is like, yay, let's post this picture on Facebook so that granny can see it, that child is not old enough to consent. Because the decision of a 5-year-old, of them when they were 5, is going to potentially affect them later in their life when they have the ability and capability to comprehend what this digital footprint means. So please, for the love of God, I know people want to share their parenthood experiences and them being grandparents and stuff. Put an emoji over that child's head. Don't post their face. Like, it's literally disgusting. And I'm not saying I'm never going to do it, but I just really there are so many creeps on the internet. And the internet is a crazy place. The internet is a scary place. And that's why maybe, well, if the internet ceased to exist, it would be sad, because, we've become so dependent on it in our day-to-day life through GPS and connecting with friends. Like now when I live abroad, I can talk to my parents and my friends every single day, multiple times a day. I can see them. This is not something my parents could do back in the day, especially not during communism. It was handwritten letters that either arrived or didn't arrive. It's like, a 50-50 chance. Whereas now I'm super privileged that I get the chance to connect with my friends and family over the internet. So I am forever grateful for the internet, and it is an amazing information and knowledge hub. The internet is extremely, and I don't use this word lightly, revolutionary, because a lot of things are evolution of one another. The internet was a revolution. And while it may be sad if, let's say, the internet ceased to exist, I think it would be great when it came down to, bringing down and limiting all the creeps and just limiting their exposure to innocent children and just innocent people. It's crazy. I feel like there should be severe regulations when it comes to this. But it's so difficult to create regulations on the internet and on social media apps. Because, for example, social media apps, like, you can create regulations on a local level. Or if it's like something like the European Union, on almost a continental level. But still, regulations and rules are severely and extremely context bound. And something as global as a social media platform cannot be regulated from the top down, because it operates in many countries and each country has a different approach to regulating its content and its internet usage and so on and so forth. And I was talking about this with a friend yesterday. I am so extremely grateful for the GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation or rules, I'm not too sure, in the European Union. And it's about protecting people's privacy and people's data. And this is something, for example, and I'm not saying it to accuse them, but it's, I studied this. this is not protection that exists, for example, in the US. And you can notice it, for example, on a very basic level in cookies. So the way cookies operate in the European Union has nothing to do with the way cookies operate in the US. Because in the US, it is an opt-out cookie experience, whereas in the European Union, it is an opt-in cookie experience. So for what this means is that in the European Union, you have to give consent for the website or the app to put a cookie on your computer and to track your browser experience or activity across different tabs and so on and so forth. You have to give explicit consent. And yeah, unfortunately nowadays, if you don't give consent, your experience is rather limited, but you still have the chance to say no. Whereas in the US, the opt-out situation is literally reversed. It is by default, you're being given a cookie to, like your browser is giving a cookie to your browser and like tracking your experience and everything you do. And you have to manually go and opt out of that option. And because they are relying on people's status quo bias, which means that you're not going to go out of your way to change your already assigned and assumed and just existing status quo and just way of living, way of doing, way of being. And that's why they're doing it. Because a lot of people are not going to go and open an extra tab or go the extra effort, do the extra effort, not use an app or a browser because they don't want to be traced. Because it is inconvenient, despite it maybe even taking a minute or two, if not even less. It is you going against the grain of your existence, and because you're psychologically not going to, because you're not necessarily willing to take the risk, because it puts you in danger, despite it, we're us talking about the internet right now. That's why they're capitalizing on this human psychology of, being biased towards the known and the way things are programmed for you, rather than you going out of your way to change things. And that's what some governments use, for example, when it comes to organ donation. Some governments are opt-in and some governments are opt-out. Some governments give you the chance to be, hey, I want to donate my organs, whereas some other governments are, by default, you are an organ donor and you have to manually go and opt out of your organ donor status. And because they know not a lot of people are going to do it, because it's extra effort, it's extra time, and just, inconvenience. That's why they choose the opt-out version. Because you're not going to go out of your way to change the status quo. Because what did High School Musical teach us? No, stick to the status quo. But yeah, I just think those things are extremely fascinating, and I don't know why I started all this tangent about cookies and browser experiences and the internet, but just I really don't remember. I think it had something to do about parents exposing their children and not giving them the chance to opt in or opt out. Just, can we agree? Oh yeah, the GDPR. We are protected here in the European Union on a deeper level than people in different countries, different continents, operated by different governments. And if you're in the European Union, genuinely, I don't know if you've thought about this, but like you should be really grateful for the GDPR. Oh, and that's what I wanted to say. Yes, so for example, social media is very difficult to regulate because it's a global thing and rules are created on a local basis. And that's why, for example, when it comes to, someone suing, let's say, Mark Zuckerberg for not, regulating his platforms well, he can go out there and say, well, this is a global platform and I cannot create rules on a global level because rules are created by the country and they are basically signing off of their responsibility, because this opens even the question, who should be held accountable for the things posted on social media? The users, the government, which regulates the users within that specific region where the platform operates, or the platform developers? This is a really, really interesting question, and there's a lot of, sides which support or disprove one stance or another. It's just interesting. I don't think that you as a platform developer are not accountable at all, despite your product being global. I like the fact that yes, social media, it has affordances and people develop new affordances and people make what they want out of social media, but social media, the way it is constructed by people. People have biases. People have put in certain algorithms, certain opportunities and affordances in that social media platform. So I think everybody should be held accountable. And I'm not saying this to support cancel culture, because I don't support cancel culture, but everybody should be held accountable. Because as Justin Bieber said in Sorry, there's no innocent one in this game for two. What a banger of a song. So this is my appeal to all parents out there. And this is, of course, coming from someone who is not a parent. But it is coming from someone who was on the verge of being born a digital native. I'm not a digital native. I'm literally the last generation of people before being digital natives, because I didn't grow up with that technology. I didn't grow up with the internet. I acquired it and developed those capabilities and skills and knowledge later in my life. But this advice is coming from someone as a media researcher. This advice is not coming from someone as a parent, but as someone who is concerned and someone who has researched the danger of people's activities online. Please, if there is an ounce of love you have for your child, do not post them on social media. Because I don't know if we're going to live to see 2050, but even if we don't, I don't know where I'm going with this, so give it a second. Like, sometimes I literally just start a sentence and just go with it. I even surprise myself. This is one of the cases. I don't know if we're going to live to see 2050, but if, let's say, we do, let's not force our children to pick up the pieces from the digital footprint we created and we imposed on them because they were cute as a baby. Because let's be real, not all babies are cute. And I'm sorry, I know, another hot take, but babies, they sometimes, especially when they're a newborn, you cannot post a picture of a newborn because they look like they snuck onto Earth. They look like an alien. They don't look like a human. And I know, when you look at it and it's yours and it just came out of your vagina, you're like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful creature ever to walk on Earth, despite I'm not walking on Earth yet. But babies, they're not even that... Well, some of them are cute, but come on. Let's give people the chance to create their own terrible digital footprint. Let's give people the chance to fuck up and not us fuck up for them, shall we? With that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it was somewhat educational and it made you think about certain stuff. And if I actually made you think and you had the chance to distract yourself from pure physical survival, then reflect on the fact that your needs for nourishment and shelter have been met. And that is an extreme win. That is an extreme privilege. And if not, well, I don't know what to tell you. I am now going to go. I literally just took a shower before starting recording. I need to go take another one because I am sweating my ass off because, closing the window. But that is dedication to giving you quality content. So I don't know if I'll see you in 2050, but I hope to see you next week in next episode. But until then, stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, and don't support genocide. Bye!